Question number 50 on the reading portion of College Board's Test 5. The passage most strongly suggests, so what is it like really hinting at? What is it really driving for, even though it might not directly say it? That mental athletes are successful at memorization. So why are mental athletes successful at memorization? Well, I remember mental athletes are successful at memorization because they are using different parts of the brain than a normal person. I think that's line 66. When the mental athletes were learning new information, they were engaging several regions of the brain known to be involved in two specific tasks, visual memory and spatial navigation. Because if we also remember a little bit before, line 62, according to the functional MRI, regions of the brains that were less active than control subjects seem to be working in overdrive for the mental athletes. So the reason why mental athletes are successful at memorization is not because their brains are bigger or better or special. It's because they're able to just use different parts of the brain when memorizing. So the passage most strongly suggests that mental athletes are successful because they exploit parts of the brain not normally used in routine memorization. Yes, they're not normally used in memorization because we find out the portions of the brain in mental athletes are different. They're active in different parts of the brain than in regular people. So, no. What about B? Mental athletes are successful at memorization. So why are mental athletes successful? Because they convert information they're trying to memorize into abstract symbols. The last part of this bothers me. We're not talking about abstract symbols. What do? They convert it to pictures, I think it says. The mental athletes, line 81, said they were consciously converting information that were being asked to memorize into images. I don't think that has to do anything with abstract symbols. An image could be an abstract symbol, but it doesn't have to be. And I don't think they say that it has to be abstract or something that's crazy. They're just making it a snapshot in their head rather than it being some kind of list or something. So I'm not liking that last part because of the abstract symbols. What about C? The passage most strongly suggests that mental athletes are successful at memorization because they organize information into numerical lists. Okay, this is, no, they don't say that they organize things in numerical lists. That's a good bad answer. I think so is B. B and C are very similar to one another. C is like a good bad answer if you think like, oh, that's how smart people do things. They organize in a list, they're like computers. But that's, in this case, not true. That's not how people memorize things. What about D? The passage most strongly suggests that mental athletes are successful at memorization because they exercise their brains regularly through puzzles and other mental challenges. Okay, even though we say at the end that neural activity, unexpected patterns of neural activity are the result of training and practice, we don't know what type of training and practice that is. So we don't know if it's puzzles and other mental challenges. It could be something else. I don't like how D is, kind of pinning us in a corner and forcing us to say things that just, they were not said in the passage. So again, with 50, what does the passage most strongly suggest about mental athletes and why they're successful in memorization? Because they're using different parts of their brain than normal people. So, or A, they exploit, and exploit in this case doesn't mean like you exploit a particular group of people or you like exploit them for labor. Exploit means like to like extract value out of them, maybe unethically. Exploit just means to use in this case. It's more neutral than to exploit a group of people. You exploit or use parts of the brain not normally used in routine memorization. The answer number 50 is going to be A. Question number 51 on the reading portion of College Board's Test 5. Which choice provides best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So realize 51 is tied to 50. We think the answer to 50 is going to be A because they say, why are mental athletes successful in memorization? Because they use different parts of the brain that other people don't use when they memorize. And we remember in this 66, when mental athletes were learning new information, they were engaging several regions of the brain known to be involved in two specific tasks. And if we can read the sentence before it, according to functional MRIs, regions of the brain that were less active in the control subject seem to be working in overdrive. So they're using different parts of their brain. That's what makes them exceptional memorizers. So even if we don't know really, okay, let's treat that, we think it's going to be A for 50, but irrespective of the answer choice for 50, let's see if we can answer the question just by reading the quotes. Which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? So what question do we have to answer? We have to answer the question of how the passage most strongly suggests that mental athletes are successful at memorization. So why are mental athletes successful at memorization? That's like the way that I like to rephrase these. And I ask myself that over and over again. Why are mental athletes successful at memorization? Let's go to 66 to 72. Does this explain why mental athletes are successful at memorization? Surprisingly, when the mental athletes were learning new information, they were engaging several regions of the brain known to be involved in two specific tasks. I like that, visual memory and spatial navigation. So this is asking, why are mental athletes successful at memorization? Because they are using two different types of memory. They're using the same right posterior hippocampal region that the London cabbies had enlarged with all their daily wayfinding. Why are they successful at memorization? Because we think it's going to be A for 50, they exploit parts of the brain not normally used in routine memorization. And what are those things that are not normally used? The spatial memory, which is the weird part, and visual, which might be the image part. So I like on how 51A answers that question of mental athletes are successful at memorization. Why? Because they use different parts of their brain, not normally used in routine memorization. That's what it's suggesting. It might not be complete. Again, I can't just pick A out of hand with 51 and say like this is a great answer, because maybe you might argue, well, we don't know what's normally used in routine memorization. That doesn't really lead us to believe what is normally used. And it's like, I get it. You know, the context around it matters and it makes sense, but that quote alone doesn't answer that 100%. So, okay, let's take a look at B for 51 and see. Does this quote answer the previous question of why mental athletes are successful at memorization? 72 to 73. Does this show why they're successful at memorizing things? At first glance, this wouldn't seem to make any sense. That doesn't say why they are good at memorizing things, because it doesn't make any sense. No. 79 to 81. Does this talk about why mental athletes are good at memorizing things? McGuire and her team asked the mental athletes to describe exactly what was going through their minds as they memorized. That doesn't talk about why are these mental athletes successful at memorization? Because they were asked what was going through their mind as they memorized? No. Irrespective of whether or not someone's asking them what's going on in their head, they're going to be good at memorizing things. That's not the reason why they're successful at memorizing things. Can't be C. What about D? 85 to 87. Does this talk about why they're successful at memorizing things? They weren't doing this automatically or because it was an inborn talent they nurtured since childhood. That doesn't talk about why they're good at memorizing things. That just says a fact of maybe their upbringing. They weren't doing this automatically because it was an inborn talent. So they're good at memorizing things because it wasn't an inborn talent. That doesn't make any sense either. So that's not going to be it. I really think the answer for number 51 is going to be A. And that makes sense because that's the only one that's talking about what is going on in the brain of a super, mental athlete. And if we read for context the sentence before, even though I get that's not in the quote, it suggests, it leads us to believe that the things that are going on in a mental athlete's mind are different than the things that are going on in a regular person's mind with respect to memorization. So the answer to number 51 is going to be A, and that matches up with 50A as well. Mental athletes are successful at memorization because they use parts of the brain not normally used in normal memorization. 50A, 51A.